Let's welcome in now Director of Florida International University's Institute for Public Policy, Brian Fonseca joins us now. Brian, great to see you again.
Thanks, John.
Well, we see the U.S. mobilizing to the Caribbean. We hear that Venezuela is doing the same thing now. Where does this ultimately lead?
Well, I think what the U.S. is hoping is that it leads to a fracture within Venezuela, an implosion within either the political elite or the military elite, that it doesn't have to do much more than sort of flex its muscle in the Caribbean, target some boats. It could ultimately, sort of lean towards the strikes within Venezuela at targets related to illicit trafficking networks. But ultimately, that's what the U.S. is hoping. I think on the other end, Maduro and the Venezuelan political elite regime are hoping to survive that pressure, hoping that the elite and sort of military leadership stay intact, that they don't buckle under the pressure of the Americans, and that they can weather the storm that the Americans are bringing in the Caribbean right now.
Oh, earlier today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the U.S. is taking back Latin America through our economic leadership, adding that there will be no bullets. Brian, what are your thoughts on the economic aspect of this combat?
Yeah, I mean, certainly what this is all about is deepening our relationships here in the Western Hemisphere. I think that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other leadership within the Trump administration have made it clear that they're sort of re-emphasizing the importance of the Western Hemisphere in American foreign policy, something that experts have sort of challenged the Americans to do in past decades, to sort of reemphasize the importance of this region, and largely not just about drug trafficking, not just about sort of autocracies like Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua, but also to displace American rivals like China, who have grown incredibly deep sort of roots within the region over the last 25 years in an economic context, in a diplomatic context, and certainly in a security context.
Yeah, I've been to Jamaica a couple times since the hurricane, and you can see the Chinese influence in Jamaica, and just another reminder just how widespread it is across the region. I wanted to ask you also about Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's saying the Trump administration has all the authority necessary to continue to strike these drug boats in South American waters. Do you agree with Secretary Hegseth?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's certainly a debate that's happening not just sort of in the United States between parties and sort of legislative bodies trying to determine whether or not the president has the ability to designate these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That's one debate going on. And I think the president has asserted that these are incredibly complex criminal enterprises that do wreak violence and havoc on people that are affected by the proliferation of narcotics and the broader violence that happens with transnational criminal networks. There's another debate going on in the international community, one sort of within the legal bodies of the international community, as well as the court of public opinion and the broader global perception of whether or not the United States has the authority to target citizens of other nations that may be operating in sort of a criminal context as opposed to a insurgency or terrorist context. And I think that's the big debate. There's certainly a fine line there, but the president is using that argument, letting the courts figure that out, whilst the Department of War continues to move forward in the absence of any real sort of contest, moving forward with targeting those criminal enterprises in the region.
While we wait for some guidance from the courts, the CNN is actually reporting that the United Kingdom is suspending some of its intelligence sharing with the United States over these drug boat strikes. Do you think that's going to have any significant effect?
I don't think it's going to have a huge effect, because I think the United States and sort of the intelligence community that operates in this hemisphere is incredibly adept at sort of understanding the region, and they have tremendous access and understanding of the region. I think it's more symbolic. Countries like the UK, we heard Colombia do this recently as well, sort of suspend intelligence sharing. I think those are largely symbolic gestures that may be lining up with the broader international consensus. The United States may be overreaching on this, but I'm not sure that's going to have any real operational effect. It may have effect in sort of relations, at least for now, but no real operational effect undermining the U.S. ability to do what they're doing in the Caribbean.
Yeah, we have a woman like Maria Corina Machado, who has a mandate, I think, from a lot of the Venezuelan people to take over should something happen to Nicolas Maduro. One of the things you and I have talked about is the prospect of arresting Nicolas Maduro. There are indictments against him. Could he go the way of Manuel Noriega?
I mean, he certainly could. If the U.S. were to, and again, I think it's a highly unlikely scenario, but if the U.S. were to invade or were to intervene physically on the ground in Venezuela, and arrest Maduro. I think that certainly could go the path. The U.S. has, again, as you mentioned, John, indicted Maduro so they could bring him back here and try him in the United States. And ultimately, he ends up in a prison not far from where I am, where Manuel Noriega sat for a long period of time in South Florida. I think that's certainly a plausible path. I think what the U.S. is maybe hoping for instead is that there is democratic forces that rise up. There's a fracture within the elite. Maduro is either thrown in jail in Venezuela or is exiled, in another country, let's say in Russia, for example. I think that's what the U.S. is sort of. That's probably a more realistic path than the U.S. invading and bringing him here, but certainly within the realm of possibility.
Exiled to Russia, like Bashar al-Assad, who we don't hear much from
Right next
anymore
door.
these days. Brian
That's right.
Fonseca, always great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.